The ancient gate drifted in the darkness like a wounded god, its broken rings glowing faint blue as if something inside was trying to breathe again. For centuries it rejected every ship that dared to come close, throwing back fleets with a single pulse of blinding light, leaving commanders shaking and empires humiliated. Tonight was no different. The Council's warship had approached with full ceremony, lights blazing across the void, banners of gold stretching along its hull, yet the moment it crossed the gate's shadow a silent force slammed into it, sending the massive vessel spinning away like a child's toy. Inside that ship alarm screamed. Crew members fell to the floor, and the Council's sacred pride cracked in the dark, echoing across the silent stars. But as the great warship limped away, another shape drifted toward the ancient structure, small and unnoticed, like a forgotten thought returning after years of sleep. The stars reflected on the shuttle's scratched surface, showing patches of old repairs, uneven paint, and burn marks from jobs no one wanted to remember. Inside sat a human, his eyes half open, hair messy from a quick nap, one hand holding a warm cup of coffee and the other resting on a dented metal toolbox that rattled every time the shuttle shook. His face didn't show fear or wonder or reverence, only the mild irritation of someone who had been called to fix something far from home. The galaxy trembled before the gate, yet he looked at it the way a tired worker looks at a broken generator. As the shuttle drifted closer, the gate stirred, its ancient runes flickering for the first time in 1,000 years, whispering like a giant waking from a long, deep dream. Sensors across the sector lit up. Empires froze. Council members leaned forward in disbelief. No alien had ever made the gate react like this. Not once. Yet this one human wasn't even trying. He sipped his coffee, opened his comm, and said in a calm, sleepy voice, "All right, let's see what's wrong this time." The gate pulsed in response, a low hum rolling across the stars like a heartbeat returning to life, and for the first time since the dawn of the galaxy, something inside the ancient machine began to unlock. The human didn't flinch. He only placed a hand on the toolbox and waited. The moment the gate opened its eye, the darkness around it shifted, bending like space itself was inhaling. A thin beam of pale light stretched across the void, not violent like before, but slow and deliberate, sweeping toward the small human shuttle as if trying to remember a face it once knew. Eli felt the hum through the hull, a deep vibration that pressed against his chest, warm and strangely familiar, almost like a heartbeat syncing with his own. He wasn't a soldier or a scholar or a captain trained for wonders like this. He was just a technician who fixed broken things, yet something about the gate's awakening made the back of his neck tingle. He placed his coffee aside, straightened in his seat, and whispered, "All right, buddy, talk to me." Outside, the runes circling the gate flared brighter, one after another, forming a pattern even the greatest alien minds had never seen. The light didn't attack, it reached, twisting through the silence like a hand searching for something fragile. Alarms erupted in distant council ships watching from afar, their screens displaying impossible readings, their commanders shouting that the gate was preparing for war. But the light ignored them. It focused only on Eli. It touched the shuttle's surface with the softness of a memory, scanning every inch, pausing whenever it found a scratch, a burn mark, or a piece of old tape holding a panel together. It felt less like a machine and more like something alive, something curious, something that had waited a very long time. Eli stepped out of the shuttle, boots touching the ancient platform beneath him, the metal warm as if the gate's pulse ran directly through it. The toolbox clanked by his side, the sound echoing across the empty expanse like a challenge. He didn't know why the air felt charged, why the gate's massive rings rotated overhead with slow, heavy groans, why the universe suddenly felt smaller and louder all at once. He only knew he was being watched, not by the Council, not by empires, but by the gate itself. A faint glow rippled across its runes again, this time softer, like approval or recognition. Eli took a breath, kneeled near the first access panel he could see, and reached for his wrench, but before his hand touched the metal, the panel slid open on its own. A whisper drifted out, low and trembling, a voice that didn't belong to any species alive today. The voice drifted out of the open panel like a breath carried through stone, soft but heavy, ancient but trembling with something close to hope. Eli froze, his hand hovering above the metal, the sound sinking into his chest and tightening every muscle in his body. He had heard strange engines, faulty AI systems, even the dying whine of old war machines, but nothing ever spoke like this, nothing ever sounded aware. The air around him vibrated again, a slow thrum rising through the floor into his boots, as if the gate itself was trying to steady its own voice after centuries of silence. Eli swallowed hard, feeling the weight of a moment he did not understand, and whispered back, "I'm here, I guess." The runes around the gate pulsed once in response, dimming and brightening in a slow, shaking rhythm, almost like the heartbeat of something waking from a deep and painful sleep. Sparks of pale light drifted from the open panel, swirling like dust trapped in a beam of sunlight, brushing past Eli's fingers with a faint warmth that felt strangely personal. On the council ships in the distance, panic spread like fire, commanders shouting for shields, for weapons, for answers, none of them able to explain why a human was standing at the center of something they had feared for generations. But the gate cared nothing for them. Its focus stayed locked on the lone figure kneeling beside it, the one creature it had not rejected. Eli leaned closer, the glow reflecting in his eyes, and beneath the ancient hum he heard something else. A tremor of emotion, a kind of sorrow woven into every pulse of light. The voice returned, clearer this time, still shaking. "We waited, and we broke, because you never came." The words made Eli's chest tighten. He wasn't a hero, he wasn't chosen for anything. He was a technician who fixed things no one else wanted to touch, yet the gate spoke to him as if he carried a history he didn't remember. He whispered, "Why me?" But the gate didn't answer. Instead, deeper layers of its rings began to turn, heavy stone grinding against metal, light pouring through ancient cracks like the first sunrise after a long night. Then the ground beneath him shifted. A seam opened at the center of the platform, wide and sudden, glowing with a fierce blue light that swallowed the shadows. Eli stumbled back as something rose from the depths, a massive structure hidden inside the gate, covered in markings no living empire had ever recorded, and at its center burned a symbol every human child knew by heart. It was the Emblem of Earth. The Emblem of Earth rose into the cold air like a ghost returning to a place the galaxy had forgotten, its blue glow spreading across the massive structure as if waking old memories buried under centuries of dust. Eli's breath caught in his throat, the sight hitting him with a force he couldn't name, a mix of fear, pride, and a strange ache that felt older than his own life. This gate wasn't alien. It wasn't built by any empire still standing. It carried the mark of home, the same emblem that hung in classrooms, in old history books, in the forgotten corners of Earth's past. But the question burned deeper than the glow itself. Why was this symbol hidden here, locked behind a structure the galaxy claimed was ancient beyond comprehension? The gate hummed again, lower now, softer, almost apologetic, as if ashamed of the secret it had kept. The runes flickered like wounded eyes, each pulse shaking the platform beneath Eli's feet. The voice returned, and this time the tremble was unmistakable. "We waited for your return, but your people vanished from the stars." The words sliced through Eli's mind like cold steel. Humanity vanished? He shook his head, heart pounding. Humans were everywhere. Stations, colonies, supply lines stretching across the void. They weren't gone. They weren't forgotten. Yet the gate spoke with the certainty of something that had witnessed the passing of ages. Eli stepped forward, voice tight. "Humanity didn't disappear. We're still out there." A long silence followed, heavy and suffocating, until the gate answered with a sorrow that made the air vibrate. "We only saw the shadows, not the ones who made them." The meaning twisted inside Eli like a knot being pulled tighter and tighter. Shadows. Echoes. Was the gate saying the humans out in the galaxy weren't the humans it remembered? Were they changed, lost, weakened, or something far worse? Before he could ask more, the massive structure shuddered, layers of ancient armor sliding apart to reveal a deep chamber hidden within the gate's core. Light spilled out, swirling like a storm, revealing what looked like a pod, smooth, metallic, carved with the same Earth emblem. And inside that pod, through the thin layer of ice on the glass, Eli saw the outline of a human figure resting in suspended silence. A heartbeat, not his own, echoed through the platform, faint but real. The person inside was alive. The heartbeat echoed again, soft but steady, pulsing through the chamber like a drum calling something ancient back into the world. Eli stepped closer, breath shaking, his palm pressed against the cold glass of the pod as frost cracked beneath his touch. The figure inside was unmistakably human. The shape of the shoulders, the curve of the jaw, the faint rise and fall of a chest suspended between life and silence. But this wasn't any colonist or wanderer. The suit the figure wore was old, impossibly old, marked with insignias Eli had only seen in forgotten museum archives, symbols from the earliest days of Earth's expansion into space. Whoever this person was, They came from a time before the galaxy even knew humanity existed. Behind him, the gate's runes flared brighter, lighting the chamber with a trembling glow that felt almost like relief. "He was the last," the gate whispered, voice breaking like fractured stone. "The last of those who built me, and the galaxy turned without him." Eli's throat tightened. The gate wasn't just guarding some ancient relic, it was guarding a human who should have been dust 1,000 years ago. A survivor trapped in time. A witness from humanity's forgotten past. Eli's heart pounded harder, fear mixing with awe, with a strange pull he couldn't understand. "Why keep him here?" he asked, voice low. "Why not let the world know he survived?" The gate's reply came like a slow exhale. "Because the world you know is not the one he left behind." Before Eli could speak, the ground trembled violently, shaking tools loose from his belt, sending dust falling from the chamber walls. The hum shifted, sharp and urgent, as if the gate had sensed something approaching, something it feared. Far above them, distant flashes lit the darkness. Council ships, dozens of them, closing in fast. Panic surged up Eli's spine as the gate groaned, its ancient rings grinding into a rapid, defensive rotation. "They seek the power he carries," the gate warned, voice strained. "They believe he is the key to the first star, and they will tear him from this place." The pod's locks clicked, one by one, releasing cold steam that spilled across the platform like ghostly fog. Eli stumbled back, eyes wide, as the figure inside shifted, a hand twitching, a faint breath pushing through parted lips. The heartbeat grew louder, stronger, echoing off every surface. Outside, the Council's first volley of energy fire streaked toward the gate, illuminating the chamber with fiery red light. And then the pod cracked open with a violent hiss, and the ancient human took his first breath in 1,000 years. The ancient human drew in a ragged breath, the cold mist curling around his face as his eyes slowly opened, unfocused at first, then sharpening with a depth that felt older than the stars themselves. Eli stood frozen, every thought tangled between fear, awe, and the overwhelming feeling that history itself had just stepped into the present. The man inside the pod pushed a trembling hand against the frame, lifting himself with slow, deliberate effort. His suit cracked in places, but still glowing faintly with old Earth insignias that hadn't been seen in living memory. Outside, the Council's barrage slammed against the gate's shields, fiery red light flashing through the chamber like lightning trapped behind glass. But the awakened human didn't look afraid. He looked like someone who had been waiting for this moment longer than Eli could comprehend. When his gaze finally found Eli, something like recognition flickered behind his eyes, not of a person, but of a people. A continuation. A future he had always prayed would exist. His voice was rough, dusted with centuries of silence. "You're from Earth." Eli nodded, throat tight, emotion rising like a wave he couldn't stop. "Yeah. Name's Eli. Maintenance tech." The man let out a weak, hollow laugh that still somehow carried warmth. "Of course. Humanity always sends the ones who fix things." His hand reached out, resting briefly on Eli's shoulder, and for a moment the chaos outside faded, replaced by a quiet connection stretching across 1,000 lost years. But the gate trembled again, its voice strained and urgent. "They are breaching the outer rings." The man straightened, pain flickering across his face before determination buried it. He stepped forward, placing his palm against the glowing emblem etched into the chamber's heart. The runes ignited in a rush of brilliant light, shooting up the gate's rings, filling the hollow structure with a roar that shook the metal under Eli's feet. The ancient human whispered something under his breath, a phrase Eli couldn't fully hear, but it sounded like a promise, not to the gate, not to the past, but to humanity itself. The gate answered with a surge of power that erupted outward like a star being born. The Council fleet outside was thrown backward in a single deafening blast of blue light, their weapons silenced, their engines overwhelmed, their pride shattered in the glare of something they never understood. And in the center of it all stood the ancient human, shoulders squared, eyes bright with fierce, steady fire. He turned to Eli, voice stronger now, carrying the weight of 2 eras meeting at last. "They feared this gate," he said softly, "because they never knew who built it. But you came with a toolbox and no fear." He smiled, tired but proud, as the rumbling eased and the rings slowed around them. Humanity never stopped being extraordinary. The chamber fell quiet, bathed in the soft blue glow of the reawakened gate, and for the first time since the beginning of the galaxy's story, 2 humans from 2 different ages stood side by side, Not as mystery, not as myth, but as proof. Eli looked up at the living light above him, his voice barely a whisper. "We're still here." And the stars seemed to answer back. "You." The blue glow faded into a steady pulse, calm and breathing, as if the gate itself had settled after centuries of waiting. Eli stood beside the awakened human, both of them staring into the shifting patterns of light flowing across the chamber walls. The air felt heavier now, charged with something far bigger than fear or curiosity. It felt like the edge of a truth too large for one moment to hold. The ancient human touched the wall, and the runes responded, shifting into a map of the galaxy that stretched across the entire chamber in swirling bands of light. Eli's eyes widened. This wasn't a simple star chart. This was something older, layered with symbols no modern empire had ever decoded. The man's voice carried a deep ache, the kind that came from memories buried under time. "When Earth first reached for the stars, we didn't just explore," he said softly, eyes following the glowing lines as they twisted into ancient routes. "We built things the galaxy wasn't ready for. Gateways. Guardians. Machines meant to protect life, not control it." His hand hovered over a cluster of star systems that pulsed with faint red light, the kind that felt like a warning. But something happened. Something that forced us to hide everything we created. Even ourselves. Eli felt his chest tighten. Hide from what? The man didn't answer right away. He pressed his palm to another section of the map, and the red lights bled outward, spreading like cracks across the galaxy. "Not from enemies," he whispered. "From our own future." Eli stared at him, confusion and unease twisting deep in his stomach. The man continued, voice trembling now, as if speaking the words reopened wounds older than nations. "We saw humanity changing, splitting, forgetting what made us strong, forgetting unity. Some wanted power, not progress. Some wanted control, not connection." He looked directly into Eli's eyes. "We built the gate because we believed one day the right human would come. Someone who remembered what we were supposed to be." Before Eli could speak, the chamber shook with sudden force, the map flickering wildly as if something had cut through its signal. The gate released a low, rumbling groan, deeper than any sound it had made before, vibrating through Eli's bones. A new light appeared on the map, bright, violent, and moving fast. It wasn't the Council. It wasn't any known fleet. The ancient human staggered, gripping the railing as his face drained of color. "No, not now," he whispered, voice cracking with fear Eli hadn't heard until this moment. "That signal, it's them. They found us." Eli swallowed hard. "Who?" The man's answer came out like a trembling breath, heavy with dread and memory. "Humans who left before Earth ever learned their names." The chamber dimmed as the violent light on the star map pulsed again, sending ripples of dread through the air like thunder rolling across a dark horizon. Eli felt his breath shorten, a cold weight settling in his chest as he watched the red signal move closer with impossible speed, cutting through sectors as if the galaxy offered no resistance. The ancient human stepped forward slowly, every movement heavy with memory, fear, and a kind of sorrow that didn't belong to this time. His eyes stayed locked on the growing light, and for a moment Eli saw not a survivor, but a man carrying the burden of a civilization's greatest mistake. The room hummed softly, the gate's lights flickering as though bracing against a storm only it understood. Eli's voice shook. "These humans, the ones who left, what are they?" The man didn't answer at first. He lowered his head, fingers curling against the railing, the glow of the map painting his face with shifting streaks of blue and red. "They were visionaries once," he finally whispered. "Brilliant, bold, fearless. But brilliance without balance becomes hunger. Vision without compassion becomes empire." He exhaled, a sound full of pain. "They believed humanity should rule the galaxy, not guide it. They wanted every star under one hand, theirs." Eli felt his stomach twist. "So they left to build their own future?" The ancient human nodded, eyes distant. "They called themselves the true line. They believed they were evolution, and everyone else, even those born from Earth, were lesser." His voice lowered, barely audible. "We tried to stop them. We failed. And before we sealed the gate, we saw a glimpse of the future they wanted. A future carved by force." A silence settled, deep and suffocating. The gate let out a soft hum, almost like a warning sigh, its runes dimming as if preparing for impact. Eli stood beside the man, his hands trembling against the metal platform, the enormity of everything pressing down like gravity growing heavier by the second. Outside the chamber, faint vibrations echoed as the distant stars flickered, a sign that the approaching fleet was close enough to disturb the fabric of space itself. The ancient human put a hand on Eli's shoulder, steadying him, grounding them both in the moment. "They will come here," he said softly, "because they know what sleeps within this gate, and they will not allow anyone, not the council, not you, to stand in their way." Eli swallowed, feeling the fear and the weight of responsibility crash together inside his chest, forming something sharp, something undeniable. Courage. The gate's light slowly rose, a slow glowing breath filling the chamber with a soft, steady blue. And for the first time, Eli understood, this wasn't just a machine. It was a promise left behind for the humanity that chose compassion over domination. The man beside him drew one slow, deep breath, straightening his posture, the weight of centuries lining his eyes. "When they arrive," he murmured, "everything changes." The star map flared white, the signal entering the system. The storm was almost here. "You!" Space tore open with a scream of bending light as the True Line fleet dropped into the system, their ships slicing through the void like blades forged from shadow and fire. They didn't arrive quietly. They arrived with thunder, engines burning white, hulls carved with symbols Eli had never seen but instantly understood. Domination, conquest, the hunger to own everything that breathed. The gate shuddered, its towers trembling as waves of hostile energy washed across the ancient structure. Eli grabbed the railing as the chamber shook, while beside him, the awakened human straightened with a calm that felt impossible in the rising storm. Outside, the first of the True Line ships locked weapons, their targeting beams sweeping across the gate like execution lights searching for a throat. The ancient human stepped toward the central console, his fingers hovering over glowing runes that responded to his presence like loyal hounds returning to their master. "They will not hesitate," he said, voice strong despite the tremor in the air. "They believe they are the rightful inheritors of the stars, and they will erase anything that challenges that belief." The chamber rumbled violently as the first barrage slammed into the gate's shields, blue light meeting red fire, sparks streaking across the void like a storm of shattered suns. Eli stumbled, catching himself, eyes wide as the gate's defenses flared to life, ancient cannons rising from the rings, charging with a sound like distant earthquakes awakening from sleep. But the True Line was ready. Their formation shifted with terrifying precision, dozens of ships weaving through the gate's counterfire, their hulls shimmering with technology no modern empire possessed. They moved like predators who had been waiting centuries for this exact moment. Eli felt the floor shake beneath his boots, felt the gate straining, felt the ancient longing to protect, and the crushing fear that protection might not be enough. The awakened human laid his palm against the central emblem, and the entire gate roared. Its rings spun faster, light pouring through every crack and seam, the runes igniting like the veins of a star. "This is not just a doorway," he whispered. "It's a shield, and a warning." Outside, a massive True Line dreadnought broke formation, its prow glowing with a swirling sphere of energy so bright it lit the entire system. Eli's breath caught. That weapon wasn't meant to disable the gate. It was meant to destroy it. The gate screamed as the dreadnought fired, a colossal beam tearing through the darkness like the edge of creation itself. Eli shouted, the chamber shaking violently, the world blurring into blue and red fire. The ancient human didn't move. He simply whispered one final command. The gate answered, unleashing a blast of light so powerful it consumed the chamber in a single blinding flash. The blast of light swallowed everything, sound, color, even the trembling fear in Eli's chest, until the world became one endless white horizon. For a heartbeat, there was nothing but silence, a silence so deep it felt like the universe was holding its breath. Then the brightness softened, pulling back like a curtain drawn away from a long-hidden truth. Eli gasped as the chamber slowly returned into focus, the metal floor cooling under his feet, the air thick with fading echoes of the gate's power. Outside the shattered archway, the void was filled with drifting embers of light, fragments of the True Line's dreadnought dissolving into stardust, their massive weapon reduced to glowing dust scattered across the quiet sky. The gate's rings turned slower now, the fierce blue glow dimming into a gentle pulse, like a tired guardian lowering its shield after one final stand. Eli stumbled forward, chest tight, searching the chamber for the awakened human. He found him kneeling beside the central console, breathing hard, shoulders trembling under the weight of what he had just unleashed. The ancient suit he wore flickered, its old circuits failing after the power he had channeled, but his eyes were steady, clear, bright, alive. Eli rushed to his side, catching him before he could fall. The man smiled, a small, tired smile filled with centuries of longing finally released. "The gate answered me," he whispered, voice thin but warm. "It still remembers what we built, who we were." Outside, the last of the True Line fleet fled into warp space, shadows vanishing into the distance, their arrogance broken by a force older and stronger than anything they expected. The galaxy had changed in a single moment. The Council watched in stunned silence. The empires trembled, and at the center of it all stood two humans, one from a past the stars had forgotten, and one from a present that never understood how extraordinary its people truly were. The man rested a hand over Eli's, his breath shallow but his expression peaceful. "You came here to fix a broken thing," he murmured, "and you reminded the universe that humanity still knows how to heal." Eli felt a weight rise in his chest. Pride, grief, hope tangled together. The gate dimmed further, its rings slowing to a quiet hum, as if finally able to rest after lifetimes of waiting. Stars glimmered beyond the chamber, soft and endless, their light washing over the two figures standing in the heart of ancient history. Eli looked up at the sky, voice shaking but steady. "We're not done out here," he whispered to the stars, to the gate, to the man beside him. "Humanity still has more good to give." And somewhere in the deep quiet of the universe, it felt like the stars nodded back.